Welcome to a new series called Clicks, Not Code. During these sessions, we aim to demystify Marketing Cloud personalization and demonstrate quick wins that you can implement for your business. We will be releasing these regularly, so make sure to check back in. As a marketer, we spend all this time and money on digital ads. But what actually happens when a customer clicks? And more importantly, what actually happens after a customer clicks? This is where Salesforce personalization can come in to help you answer that million-dollar question. First off, Digital Ads 101. There are always a few things we set up during a digital campaign. We'll set up a landing page, a click-through URL, and with that click-through URL, we're going to add tracking parameters. These tracking parameters are the things that you've already set up for your tools like Google or Adobe Analytics, but maybe you don't quite know how else these could be used. They contain some important context about where the customer came from. In those parameters, we store things like the content type that the customer viewed, the campaign code for that campaign, and maybe the source system. So maybe Google, Facebook, or affiliate. In our example here, we can see things from the customer's perspective on the left. The customer has made a Google search, and our fictional e-retailer, Northern Trail Outfitters, has a successful sponsored ad placement. On the right, we can see the landing page and the click-through URL. More importantly, that URL has the UTM source set to Google and the UTM campaign is set with our campaign code. And that's it. That is all the personalization is going to need from Google in order to say, hey, hold up, I see a customer, but more importantly, I know that there exists a third-party campaign, and better yet, I can link the customer's actions on the website back to that UTM campaign. Right now, you're likely saying, it can't be that simple. What else do I have to do? And fair enough, that'd be a good question. In order to automatically capture third-party campaigns, we're going to have to set up a few things first. In a web browser, we want to load up personalization and then utilize our nav bar on the left. First, we're going to go to the section for third-party, then go to integration setup. Here, we could select one of the pre-set up third-party products, for example, Facebook, Eloqua, LinkedIn. These are all fairly quick to set up. All you need to do is go in there, confirm the parameters, and enable them. For our use case today, I'm going to go ahead and add a custom product for Google, more so just so that we can see the different parameters if we had to set something up for ourselves. The first thing I'm going to do for my custom product is give it a name. In my case, I called it Google Ads. This is going to drive both what I see within this integration screen, but also later on within my third-party campaigns, I'm going to see them grouped into folders using this naming convention. Now slightly lower down, we have the campaign match configuration. This is where we set up the rule that tells the system that we want to group these as a Google campaign versus a Facebook campaign or one of our other third-party partners. If you think back to the URL that I was using in my earlier page, I was using standard UTM parameters. More specifically, the UTM source was using to differentiate a Google campaign versus a Facebook campaign or other. You see here, I've set this up to be UTM source. If you're using other parameters, this is where you would specify what parameter to use. And then this is where you'd set up the value for the partner. In my case, I have it set up for Google. Now, there's always going to be other additional UTM parameters or other parameters within the URL query string that can be used for context and be uploaded into third-party campaign object. In my case, I was using both the UTM source, which we've already kind of talked about earlier, but also the UTM campaign parameter. This UTM campaign parameter, I'm going to store into the campaign ID field, and this is what I'm going to load into memory as the name of that campaign. Once we have our third-party product set up, SFP is now listening, and we will start to see campaigns loaded into the system. To view these campaigns, we can go back to our navigation bar. Here we'll see third-party, and we'll see Google Ads. This is where we have our other folders for our other third-party partners that we have enabled. In my case, I'm going to go to Google Ads. When we click into one of our campaigns, we're going to see the information that Salesforce has captured for us. When we set up our Google Ads integration, we set it up to listen to two parameters. First was our UTM source parameter, which we were going to save into our source attribute within the third-party campaign object. Here you can see that it has successfully saved, and our source is set to Google. The other parameter we were listening to was the UTM campaign parameter, which was loaded into the campaign's name, which we see immediately above the source attribute. There is one last thing that we can do at this point to close this full circle. If you think back to our original goal, we wanted to be able to capture more than just a click on Google. We actually wanted to be associating actions done by the customer on the website back to this campaign. This goal section is where we can choose what we want to measure. These goals are going to be segments based on real-time actions. You could have built a segment for anything like a loyalty sign-up, browsing for longer than 5 minutes, making a purchase today, or any other metric that is important to your business. For this campaign, I'm going to choose a pre-built segment that I set up for an add to cart action today. To do that, I'm going to click on Add Goal, select Segment, and I'm going to choose my add to cart today. And then in terms of measuring success, what I want to do is mark goal completion rate. What this will do is say, hey, the more users that get added to the segment, that's going to be a higher mark of success for this campaign. These goals will then be able to be viewed within our various reports. If you followed along, you now understand how to set up tracking for your third-party campaigns. Salesforce personalization has a wealth of information that can be associated to your campaign. Anything from add to cart, page views, up into form fills. Basically anything your organization tracks today. More importantly, you can see how these are set up directly within the UI with clicks and do not require custom coding. Hopefully you've enjoyed this clicks no code session, and we'll check back as we release more of these covering other quick wins you can implement for your business today.